This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 487 for September 15th, 2016. Coming up on today's show, When Independence Hurts. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everybody. It is Minx and
my favorite co-host, Lusty Guy,
coming at you from Amsterdam. Actually, not.
Well, when you hear this, we should be in Amsterdam.
We should be on a houseboat in Amsterdam. If the houseboat is rocking,
don't bother knocking.
Do come and knocking, because, it could be fun.
Well, yeah, with some pre-screening.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
She's picky. Less so for me.
So we were actually in Seattle recording these episodes in advance. I am picky, it's true.
So am I.
Yeah.
We're both picky.
Yeah, we are. We are in Seattle recording this episode, but when you hear it, with any luck, we will be on a houseboat in Amsterdam, having some fun biking, walking around the city, and just being on our annual vacation.
Yay for vacation. And we're meeting up with some old friends of mine while we're there, and meeting up with some new friends while we're there, and all in all, having a great time.
It should be, and we have never been to Europe together, although we've both been to Europe many times in the past, so I'm very excited about having, Europe is one of my favorite places, although I'm more of a Paris gal. But I'm very excited about sharing this experience together. Should be a lot of fun.
It will be. And as I'm sure no one is surprised to hear, I'm definitely an Amsterdam kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And cannot wait. In fact, right now I've got all these little... There is a list of, shall we say, scenes or scenarios or fantasies that I have in mind for Minx once we get to Amsterdam, and right now they're all blowing up in my mind like a string of firecrackers.
And see, I'm just looking forward to being in this nice walkable city where you could just walk around and enjoy the ambiance and going to the museums and all. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll have sex. It's going to magically happen. There's going to be sex on the boat.
Oh, there's going to be sex on the streets.
Oh, in that case, I should probably bring a full skirt, huh?
That's a great idea, and some wet wipes.
Okay, now we're getting graphic.
Lusty Guy's had a scotch or two. Look out.
Well, for today's episode, this is again one of the listener-directed questions from my email purge, I should say, or addressing my back emails, and I thought this was really interesting. Our email is from La Raza, who said, I came out as poly a year ago, currently dating a mono, keeping it between us until we're comfortable with the big lifestyle change we've had recently. Moved to the capital. I'm writing you to ask a very specific question about opening up to your partners and asking for personal time. Throughout my life, I've always been very independent and self-reliant, so I'm used to internalizing my problems and getting past them in my own way. But I'm worried this is affecting my relationship at the moment, as she, W, feels I don't communicate my wants and needs enough. I've instigated a Sunday safe space where we both sit down and discuss the things that are troubling us, and this point keeps coming up as one of the top 3 problems, alongside letting my work affect my mood too much and our worries that she won't be able to cope when I start dating again. One of my biggest hang-ups is that because I've always been so independent, the current situation of mono life feels like a cage, but whenever I bring up the need for me time, she gives me the hurt puppy dog eyes. So, is there any advice you can give on communicating my emotions, needs, and wants in a way that won't upset her as much?
And the short answer is no. Next episode. Of course not.
You just want to drink more scotch.
I do. I want more scotch, it's true. But having said that, you can go first.
Oh, I was going to let you go first.
Yeah, I've gone first the last 2 times.
Okay, fine.
Beauty before treachery.
So there are a couple things I want to point out. The first is, this reminds me of something that someone asked in one of our classes. Do you remember this? It was in one of our classes, and somebody raised their hand and said, is it okay for me to take a night just for me? because this person had a lot of partners with a lot of needs and demands, and this was a people-pleasing type person, and the person asked, is that okay? And we're like, oh my God, of course it is okay. Every person, no matter how extroverted you are, needs a little time to just be by yourself. So even though you didn't ask this question, I feel like it's important to say, I'm kind of like you. I've always been very independent and self-reliant, to the point that it can create issues in the relationship when I don't, for example, remember to text when I arrive home safely, as last night caused a bit of a stir, because I'm not used to being accountable to someone. And we've been together, 5 years now?
Yeah, 5 or 6
I think
years.
it's the first time, though. I've forgotten for more than an hour.
It is not the first time, but that's okay. It's a rare thing.
Yeah. So, but yes, it absolutely is okay to want and need time to yourself for reflection. However, that's not what you actually asked. In response to the question, you actually asked how to communicate your emotion, needs, and wants in a way that won't upset her. Well, first answer is what Lusty Guy said, which is, her response to your communication is in some sense not your responsibility. But in other senses, it kind of is.
Well, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
It really is. So it is very true that at one level, her reactions are hers and hers to own. It is also true that we all pretty much have an understanding that if you say to somebody, hey, you worthless SOB, you suck, they're going to respond negatively. There is a balance between them owning their reaction and you owning the likely response to what you say. There has to be a fine line that gets struck in there. Having said that, if you are being honest, polite, respectful,
and owning your shit,
then you got to kind of let her own her shit too. And just because she's giving you puppy dog eyes doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to do anything different. So at one level, what you have to do is learn to accept her puppy dog eyes. Okay? She can give you those puppy dog eyes. If at the same time she's giving you those puppy dog eyes, she's saying, I understand what you're saying is reasonable. I hear that you still love me and I can work with those set of needs. That means you're doing right. That means that even though she has a level of reaction, which is a puppy dog eye, she is also hearing your words and responding to them as a committed partner who wants to make a situation where everybody's healthy and happy. Put your response on the second part, not the first. Does that make sense?
And by the way, we should have commended you, and I will do this now, on instigating your Sunday safe space, which is basically a relationship check-in.
Absolutely, on that concept. I will say that I had a little spider sense tingle on the phrasing. Let me get a look here. I have instigated a Sunday safe space. You know what? On the one hand, kudos for having that Sunday space where you can talk. On the other hand, I have instigated makes me nervous. This relationship is not an I thing.
Ooh, it should be
It's
a we
thing.
Oh, good catch.
See what I'm saying here? So instead of I have instigated or I have demanded, you really want to look for we have agreed. So if in fact it is that you have instigated these Sunday safe spaces, I would ask you and invite you to check in with your partner and just say, you know what? I was thinking about it and I realized this was a me thing and I want to make it a we thing. So are our Sunday safe spaces working for you? And is there a different name or a way to tweak them so that we can make sure that they are a we thing and not a me thing? I just happen to notice that, and if I'm reading too much into the phraseology, by all means tell me to blow it out my ass. But the central point is your safe spaces, your check-ins should be something that everybody feels equally committed to and should be something that everybody describes as a shared effort, not as something I do because someone else started it. Check in with your partner and see if that's the case.
Agreed. And another thing that maybe you do, but you didn't mention that you do, we recommend using relationship check-ins whenever you decide to have them as not just a time to bring up small things that are troubling you or that may become big things later on, but also to bring up a state of the relationship and say the things that are working really well.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a great time to say, hey, I'm feeling really good about us, or I really loved the time we spent together this weekend. I felt like family with you, or whatever. It's a great time to give that positive reinforcement really well, so you're not, it's not only about problems. It's a great time to say, hey, I'm feeling really in love with you, and while I'm nervous about X, Y, or Z, I'm so glad that we're together and that we can talk like this, or whatever you need to say. But it's a great time to thank your partner for anything that he, she, or they have done to support you this week, or anything that was particularly difficult for them, for any time that you enjoyed together that made the relationship better for you. Great time to give positive reinforcement. What is it that you're saying? You always say, Lusty Guy, dogs and people are always learning.
That's right. Dogs and kids are always learning. The only question is what we're teaching. The heart of what we're trying to say here is bravo on having that regular check-in. And by the way, I really like the notion of it being a safe space.
Yeah,
a spot
absolutely.
where you get the ability to say what you're feeling, and I'm not going to tell you you're a douchebag for doing so. Bravo on that.
And one of the things you put in your notes that I would like to bring up as well, you mentioned that you said your current situation in mono life feels like a cage. Well, I have to admit, if I were monogamous and my partner came up with Safe Space Sundays and used that Safe Space Sunday to tell me, I feel like my life with you is a cage, it would be a little difficult to hear, and I could own that. But it might be helpful to be able, as you continue to have these meetings, to pin down what about it makes it feel like a cage. I'm reminded of our friend Aggie Says over at the solopoly.net blog. Love Aggie. And one of the things she talks about, she is polyamorous. She does prefer to live alone and have her own space to come home to, regardless of whatever relationship structure she was in at the moment. And one of the things she says she likes is, I love that I can blast whatever I want to listen to in the morning without having to be polite and put on headphones. And I totally get that. I live alone myself. And of course, when I'm, staying over with you guys, I put my headphones in so I'm not blaring NPR while other people are still sleeping in the mornings. But it's a sacrifice, a tiny one, admittedly, but it's a thing that I do in a common living space that I really love that I don't have to do when I'm in my own home. So to the extent to which you can talk about what feels confining to you, and actually bring that up and either own the shit, or maybe it's something that will change, maybe it's something that won't. But the more you can acknowledge that, it'll be a lot easier for her not to take her imposing a cage on you personally.
Well, it will also give you a place to put your hook. So what I mean by that, right now, in your description to us, we have a lot of top-level generalities.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a cage. She feels like, I'm presuming gender there, your partner feels like you're not communicating enough. So those vague generalities are not very actionable.
He does say she.
He does. Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to make sure. What we're looking for here is specific behaviors that are then actionable. So instead of saying, I feel like I'm in a cage, say, when I want to ask my coworker out for a drink, but I know that it will make you feel uncomfortable and jealous, I feel like I'm in a cage. Now we've got some actionable hooks. Now your partner can say to you, you know what? Go out for a drink. I don't care. I just don't want you to have sex. Oh.
Or I want a phone call before. Or if there's a tingly bit. If bits are tingling, then just tell me. Right? Or whatever.
So wherever you can, in your communication, not only with your partner, but also in your communication with yourself, instead of living at the summary level, strive to get to the detailed behavioral level. Here is where you'll find places where you can put your hooks, where you can place your lever, or where you can actually make behavioral changes. It doesn't tell me anything for you to say, I feel like I'm in a cage. It does tell me something to say, I feel like since I can't see anybody when I'm with you, I'm in a cage. Oh, well, you know what? You can see somebody. I just need to know that I'm the one that you come home to, or whatever that thing is. And I'm not telling you that when you get down to this level of specificity, your monogamous partner is suddenly going to become polyamorous. No. If I made that impression, I'm wrong. And I'm sorry. What I am saying is that when you get down to the behavioral level and the detailed level, you may very well find compromises. You may very well find things that all of you, in this case both of you, can do while being honest to yourselves and supporting each other fully. But if you're just up at the summary level, there's no actionable item that falls out of that. I don't know what it means when you say like you feel like you're in a cage.
Does anybody else have that song? Despite all this rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. That's been going in my head for the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Is that a show song?
No, it's no tunes. It's a Smashing Pumpkins song. I guess it's called Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Huh. I'm so uncool.
Well, I used to make up alternative lyrics to it because all the words rhyme, so I was like, despite all this mage, I'm still just a rat in old age.
Sure. Okay, so we've talked about how you want to get to behavior and not summaries. We've talked about how you want to let her be the expert on herself. Just because she's showing you puppy dog eyes doesn't mean you change your behavior. Wait until she uses her words. Ask in and check with her. The other thing now, to actually answer your questions, how can you communicate your needs and wants in a way that won't upset people? In a certain extent, you can't. Their reaction is theirs. To another extent, there are specific techniques you can do that will minimize the emotional impact you have. Here are a couple of them. 1, mirror the response you would like them to display. If you want her to be calm and cool about your needs, then you be calm and cool about your needs. Don't run into anger. Don't run into exaggeration. Just simply matter-of-factly state what they are. And the odds are good that whoever you're talking to will mirror that emotional response back to you. There's also a technique called inoculation. Now, in the same way that we give a little bit of the virus to somebody and they develop an immunity to it, and we call that a vaccination. Vaccination, thank you. You're going to do the same thing rhetorically. You're going to say to somebody, I want to make sure that you know I don't mean this in a selfish way. I don't mean this is about you. I'm not trying to say you're doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to say that I need this. By giving them a little dose of the negative response that you're afraid that they'll have and telling them in advance that doesn't represent your position, you're more likely to prevent that negative response from happening. Again, it's called inoculation, and it's a very effective technique. And finally, I'll give you one last little trick. Check in and iterate. Before you finish your whole idea, check in with the person you're talking to and say, so I'm trying to get to something like this point. Is that happening? What are you hearing right now? If I had to ask you what my idea was right now, what would you say? And when they give you that information back, iterate and change your approach to make sure you're driving into where you want to be. So the 3 things that I would give you in direct answer to your question of how can you communicate your needs in a way that won't upset somebody: be respectful and polite, inoculate, check in, and mirror the kind of attitude you want them to have. Be respectful and polite as you communicate your ideas, and the odds are pretty good they will be back to you the same way you are to them. Does that make sense?
And also, as we mentioned before, use those check-ins as a state of the relationship check-in to also mention the positive things that are going on, not just to bring up issues, and to show appreciation for anything that your partner has done for you during the week.
Exactly. And then on the last thing you mentioned, parenthetically, letting your work come to home, one of the things that Elle and I have found, because we've had the same problem, is that a getting home ritual really helps. Find something that you can do, a little Mr. Rogers event when you walk in the door, that helps you clear your mind. Now for me, it's sitting down at my computer, playing a quick video game, smoking a little bit of what is completely legal here in Washington State, and that helps me settle in at home. For Elle, it's sitting down and doing a little puzzle. Whatever it is for you, find something that helps you mark that you are now in this new space and do that thing when you get home.
Now I'm thinking of what it is for me, and that is turn on the TV and clean.
There you go.
Well, I really hope that helped. And our feedback this week, we have 2 people that wrote in, again from the back archives, on the use of the pronoun they. I love that for so long I was so stubborn about this because it's still coming at me and it gives us a chance to revive the topic for anybody else who may be on the fence.
You know, I from the beginning and continue to be vastly entertained that the longest running, most controversial topic on your show had nothing to do with me.
So the first note was from Joris, who said, was referring to episode 393 on the feedback section, and Joris wrote, "You got called out for not using they as a singular pronoun. You responded that you would respect it, but I lack a more profound acceptance here because identities have to be more important than language. Languages change anyway by people using them, so let's make these changes good by making language more inclusive. Especially when Lusty Guy talks about that person on the workshop. You guys started joking and laughing about how the person stopped being involved in the workshop after being misgendered. This feels like violent behavior to me. Apparently, you have no personal experience on being affected by misgendering," which is absolutely true. "If it happened to you on a rare occasion, you'd probably laugh it off and it'll be okay. To a lot of us, it happens all the fucking time, and it's not something we can laugh off. It's like a blow in the stomach. It zaps your energy and you need recovery time. And now imagine that blow around 20 times a day. And now think how many times that person has been misgendered on that day and all the other days before you did. How little energy they might have left to stand up to confront it. Instead, they just went silent. And remaining silent and invisible because you don't have the energy to speak up, again, zaps energy as well and hurts a lot. It's not that trans people, including non-binary trans, are unfriendly and hate answering questions or correcting pronouns. We, speaking for myself at least, are not mad at you personally, but we do get the shit all the time, and energy to be understanding and educating is limited. Thank you for trying and learning, and yes, you do get leeway for messing up while you learn. Just please don't laugh or be mad at trans people for reacting badly about being misgendered. It unnecessarily adds insult to injury. Signed, Joris, using singular they." So we actually went back and listened to this because the episode was a while ago, and I didn't remember exactly what we had said.
No, in fact, my first memory of what Joris was responding to was wrong.
Yes, right, because when we went back and listened, I have in the past, and of course I think you guys know that nowadays I am totally on board with using the singular they, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But what I was ranting about at the time was the fact that I was a grammatical editor for so long, and many people use they as a singular pronoun simply because they lack the expertise to take the sentence and actually make it a correct singular using either he or she. Now, when you pointed out that the person in the class, I referred to the person as a she, and you said that the person got a scowl over their face and then didn't participate in the rest of class.
Or their participation lessened.
Right. So I hadn't noticed that. Like, I didn't know that happened until we were talking about it just then on the podcast. And the first thing I said was, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. My bad." And you were laughing, but you were laughing at me.
Yes, that's
not at the person. So basically, nobody's mad. And I apologize if it sounded like we were laughing at a person for being misgendered. You were laughing at me, and I was apologizing. So there you go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was laughing at me. So let me be really clear about this. Actually, your assumption that we've never been misgendered, while it might be right for Minx, is categorically wrong for me. I grew up being misgendered all the time. I can't tell you how many times I went looking for my mom in some dive little bar and was stopped at the door while the person screamed over their shoulder, "M, your daughter is here." I can't tell you how many times I had rolls of fat grabbed and my breasts grabbed because I'm a guy with breasts and laughed at for such. And furthermore, it wasn't something that just happened in my childhood years. Within the last few years, for all the people think that I am very masculine and present so, I was on a jogging trip and just jogged past a group of people, kids, teenagers, who squealed, "Ew, it looks like a woman with a beard." I have bones that don't work because I had to watch them being broke as a consequence of being misgendered. You're wrong, okay? I also laugh about it. I laugh about a lot of evil, nasty things. That's my nature. Simply because somebody does something that you find inappropriate doesn't mean you know a damn thing about their background. As a man who is white, and fairly beefy, who's also the survivor of sexual violent assault, there is nobody I can ever talk to. There is no place I can ever go to, because it is always assumed that I have no experience in it. You're wrong. I grew up being misgendered. I was misgendered as recently as a jogging trip just a year or two ago. After 47 years of martial arts, fighting in the ring, and desperately trying to claim some fragment of masculinity. I still laugh at it. I'm not laughing at that person. No. Will I laugh when the situation comes up? Maybe. To not laugh at something is to give it a power I refuse to give it. So I'm sorry if it ever appears that I'm refusing to accept somebody's self-claimed gender. Not my intent. I absolutely support everybody's right to be gendered as they please. But your assumption about my experience and background is wrong. Categorically and completely. And I have the broken bones to show for it.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, baby. And I think you do have a lot of power because you do laugh at yourself an awful lot. And you laugh at me an awful lot, which is okay because I know you love me. And I know that when you were laughing about the fact that I was completely clueless and that I had inappropriately gendered this person, that you can do that because I know you love me and because I was saying right then, you knew that I felt awful for doing it and I would work harder to do it in the future. So you knew that it wasn't anything I was going to be stubborn or, all privileged or whatever about, right?
To laugh at somebody is a very powerful thing, and it's something that I wouldn't do outside of what I felt was a permission to do so, either an intimate relationship or a performance or a joke or something like that. But within that context, even if it is a topic which most of our society says we should not laugh at, I'm the kind of person who laughs at a funeral, to quote a great song.
You do find a lot of really inappropriate things funny. It's true.
It's true. I do. And I think to not laugh at those things when everybody involved is okay for the laughing is to give them a level of power that I'm not willing to accede.
Yeah.
But having said that, to the extent it ever appears I am refusing to accept somebody's self-gender, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Everybody has the right to self-gender. To the extent that it seemed that I was laughing at that person for their silence and for their hurt, I'm sorry. I was not. I was laughing at Minx
He was totally
for
laughing
her
at me.
cluelessness and for the ongoing topic. But everybody has a right to be gendered as they prefer, whatever it happens to be. And actually, I grew up being misgendered and have been beaten into the hospital as a result of it.
Oh, baby.
That's all right. I'm taking from you a learning opportunity to make it clear that I support everybody's right to self-gender. In as much as you can take a little bit of a learning opportunity and to reduce your assumptions about somebody's background because of your perception of them, you might be profited.
And just in case that's not enough, we had someone else write in about pronouns as well. This is Wardan, who said, also about that episode, so about pronouns, I heard your point of view, and I heard you replace often they by he or she, which is gender binary thing. But I recently met a lot of people of the great gender forest that don't self-identify as either man or woman, but as agender, for example. They want to be referenced as they, and they probably don't feel included when you use he or she. I know it's hard to come around on this, but using a person instead of pronouns is one way to include people that don't identify with the gender binary. I've been struggling myself with my friend W, who I perceive as a male body, but feels agender and wants to be referenced as they. Let's talk about this again. A lot of people are listening to back episodes, or they wrote in during this episode and I just got to their email. So if you haven't seen it, I will provide a link to this video in the show notes. There is a fabulous video by the editor of the Baltimore Sun going around on the use of the pronoun they. This person, who presents as male, and I feel comfortable using the pronoun he with, so he refers to famous authors that have used they as a third-person singular, including the likes of Chaucer and Shakespeare, and that the only people who don't use that are editors. Now, that being said, some style guides, I need to look up the reference, so I apologize I don't have it right now, but there are some style guides that are updating to accept the use of they as a singular third person pronoun. And especially with all the trans activism that we have been seeing in the press lately, transgender people and genderqueer folk have really come into the spotlight over the last 12 months following the marriage equality ruling here in the States. And it's becoming more and more of an issue, and more people are getting on board with it, including me.
Ta-da!
So there you go. I have been converted. I admit it still feels a little weird to me, but I am happy to do it, especially given the grammatical precedent, which is really the main thing that was bothering me in the past.
Yep. Minx likes her rules. I, on the other hand, will call you a cucumber if you want to be called a cucumber.
Just tell me to use a singular plural verb. That's all I need.
Q.
Okay. So Urden also wrote in saying, another thing I find hard to hear is the gender normative or gender stereotyping. I was listening to your podcast on Valentine's Day, and you said something along the line of being the guy he asked for sex, talking about what Lustig I wanted for Valentine's Day. It was hard for me to hear because I've been in many mono relationships where my sex drive wasn't as high as my partner and made feel inadequate for it. I'm also gender bending and don't fit a lot of men's stereotypes, and doing this kind of comment both makes me feel inadequate and also reinforces power structures and decreases self-expression for everyone. I know it's really not your intent to do that, and it's said to be fun most of the time, but I do think it's important we move away from those representations. Again, thanks for the work and effort you put into the podcast. I am surprised that nobody else has called me out on this until now.
Yeah, I kind of am too. Because it's kind of right.
You know, I do. It's true. Like I feel like I have to apologize for gender stereotypes right now, but it's true. There are many ways, despite what we just talked about, there are many ways that you do fit into a male gender stereotype, and I certainly very much fit into many female gender stereotypes. But that being said, yes, you're absolutely correct. It was said as a joke. But that being said, this podcast goes out to hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, and it's always a good idea to be more sensitive because an offhanded joke for me could be really harmful to someone else.
Well, look, in a bottom line, I think whenever anybody writes in and says, I was hurt by something you said, either of us, our first attitude is going to be, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, unless we meant to hurt you, which in Minx's part is almost never the case. And in my case, I may have meant to hurt you, in which case you probably don't have any question about it.
Don't hurt my listeners.
Clear. Well, I probably won't, but you never know. It's possible. In any case, the odds are good it wasn't something that was intended. And whenever you create accidental harm, the reasonable response from an adult is to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to create that harm.
Yeah, I didn't.
It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly Polyamorists everywhere.
So let's have something a little happier now. This has been a little bit heavy, this episode.
Well,
okay.
You know, getting called on your crap, but sometimes we're all full of crap.
Oh, I was only a little full of crap.
Same here, but still.
It was still time to empty the crap bucket.
Indeed.
So 2 Happy Poly Moments this week.
Yay.
Hi, Minx. This is a happy listener calling in with 2 happy poly moments to share. But first of all, before I talk about that, I want to say congratulations on your hand fasting ceremony with Lustig Guy. I'm so happy for you, and I simply love hearing you guys banter together. It's so sweet, so congratulations. So my first happy poly moment happened a while back when my daughter was in kindergarten. She came home one day from school with this small house made of paper in her hands. And on the outside of the house, someone had written in crayon, House of Love. And I said, what's this? To which she replied, a boy in my class fell in love with me and my best friend today. He made each of us House of Love. And guys, I mean, I about died. I was absolutely flabbergasted, particularly because my daughter's really too young at this point to understand the full extent of my relationships with other people, and yet both she and her friends came up with this open relationship structure on their own, and I think it's a testament to how we're naturally more giving with our love and affection before cultural expectations are hammered into us. And I certainly hope that however those kids want to structure their relationships when they grow up, whether it be monogamous or polyamorous or whatever, I just want them to be happy, and I hope they continue defining what they want for themselves. So I nicknamed the House of Love the Sugar Shack, and it makes me happy every time I look at it.
I love the Sugar Shack nickname.
Sugar Shack.
It's awesome.
I am a child of the 70s, so Sugar Shack works for me.
So my second happy poly moment, I want to share specifically to bring hope for those people who may have recently opened up in a pre-existing relationship and are facing struggles in that process. So a couple of years ago, my husband and I first opened our relationship, and he wanted a don't ask, don't tell policy. And at one point, he had an opportunity to meet my boyfriend at the time, and he refused. I was really crushed by that situation, and I felt it indicated he wasn't really comfortable yet, and it brought me a lot of worry, and I tried to be supportive. But more recently, my husband has really warmed up to the idea of having an open relationship, and now he's started dating, and he is friends with my new boyfriend, who spends a lot of time at our house hanging out, and this is the happy poly moment part of it. Recently, my husband and my boyfriend have gone out for drinks together as friends without me. And it's just such a complete turnaround from the way it was a few years ago, and it makes me so happy. And I just wanted to share this with folks who are new and, perhaps bring a ray of hope that if you continue being supportive of your partner and you find partners who will be supportive of your pre-existing relationships as well, you really can reach this wonderfully comfortable place where it's truly honest and open. So thanks so much again, Minx, for all of the work that you do for the podcast. I feel I've learned so much from you. So thank you, and good night.
I love these happy poly moments when, especially these that deal with, we were afraid of this because, we thought it would be X and we thought it would be Y, so we made all these rules, but then they ended up getting along really great. I love those.
Absolutely.
I do. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well done tacking into your fear.
Well, I think that about wraps up our gender-neutral episode for the week.
I hope that everyone listening is happy. I was trying to work they in there somehow, and that sentence didn't work. Never mind.
Well, I think that about wraps up our episode for this week. A little bit heavier than usual, but I think it was really worth it. It's really important to talk about the pronoun usage and the conflicts that do come up in polyamory.
Absolutely. We want to encourage everybody who thinks that we've done something that needs to be corrected. Write in, please.
Yeah, and I'll even answer the email in a relatively timely manner.
Would love.
Maybe. Seriously, thanks to everybody for listening. Thank you when you write in, or if you just choose to listen and not participate at all. We still love you. We keep this resource free for hundreds of thousands of people navigating their introduction to and their ongoing happiness with polyamory. If you do ever feel the need to call in, 802-505-POLY. You can email us, polyweekly@gmail.com. If you want to book us to come speak at your event, lustyguy@polyweekly.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter @polyweekly or facebook.com/polyweekly. We are going to go back to enjoying Amsterdam right now, and hopefully you enjoy this show. So thanks for listening, and remember, it's not all about the sex.
What's your answer? My joint here and smoke during this.
I just popped again, damn it.
Could have made you laugh.
Yeah.
You should so put these in. We need to do an outtakes. We so need to do an outtakes.
And by we, you mean Minx needs to do another 2 hours of editing
Exactly.
in all my spare time?
Yes.
I have 4 episodes to record tonight. Okay, well, now 2.5.
So what's one more little outtake while you're at it?
God.
That was recorded, right?
Yes.
Good.